Honorable House Chair, honorable members, for South Africa to grow faster and to build a transformed and inclusive economy, clearly land reform is necessary. But it is not only necessary, it has become very urgent. We will advance the three elements of land reform: redistribution, restitution, and security of tenure through inclusive dialogue. We will explain to potential investors, as Mr. Maimane has asked, that land reform is not incompatible with agricultural productivity and economic development, as the historical experience of some Southeast Asian countries or economies, such as South Korea, have demonstrated. Land reform, which will include the mechanism of expropriation without compensation, will be implemented in a way that contributes to a stronger economy, job creation, and economic freedom. We will do so without jeopardizing economic development, agricultural production, and food security. In our investment law, we will provide, and as we say, we provide significant guarantees to domestic and foreign investors. In our engagements at the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos, during investor roadshows in the US and in the UK, and at recent roundtable discussions with CEOs in London, and indeed in our exchanges with a number of other leaders on the African continent in Kigali, we found that foreign investors do appreciate the need for South Africans to find sustainable solutions to the inequitable distribution of land and wealth in our country. In their investment decisions, investors take a long-term view on the market opportunities, sector policy, and support and regulatory environment. They are looking for stability, they are looking for certainty, they are looking for policy certainty as well. They are also looking for clear and direct messages that they themselves will be able to analyze. Our envoys will indicate that steady progress is being made in consultation with industry, with labor, and communities on the finalization of the mining charter. We will soon be finalizing our approach on the allocation of spectrum, which will build the requisite capacity for a modern, inclusive economy. Government is leveling the playing field for investors and businesses entering concentrated markets through amendments to the competition legislation. It is significant that Moody's Ratings Agency recently decided to keep South Africa at an investment grade and changed its outlook from negative to stable, affirming the country's recent political and economic developments. Foreign investors that we have interacted with over the last few months are increasingly optimistic about the prospects for the South African economy and looking with great interest at possible investment opportunities. Rather than look at the issue of land reform, the correction of this terrible deed that was done many years ago, where land was taken away from our people in negative light, I say let's look at it in positive light. Let's look at it as a great opportunity that all of us have as South Africans to contribute to this debate. So far, I'm told that 140,000 submissions have already been made. by the people of South Africa in the initiative that was commenced by this Parliament, by this National Assembly. They are sending submissions on an ongoing basis. And they all have views. They all have suggestions to put forward. They all have certain positions that they want these honorable members who are here to heed. And I'm saying, let us allow that dialogue to continue. Soon, the structure that we put in place will be going around the country to hold consultations and to listen to our people. Our people have views. They have ideas. Let's give them that opportunity. Rather than to sit here and pontificate, rather than to sit here and think that we are wiser than our people as a whole. 140,000 people have already submitted, and I think it is likely to top even 500,000 soon. There have been 2 other processes that our people have engaged in. The first was when the Freedom Charter was drafted. Thousands and thousands of our people participated. They wrote their submissions, and some were written on brown paper, some were written on newspaper pages, some were even written on toilet paper and sent through to the Congress of the People to deliberate on the aspirations of our people. That resulted in the endorsement and the drafting of the most important document that we have ever had in our country, apart from our Constitution, a document that whose pronouncements have found their way in our Constitution, the Freedom Charter. The next opportunity was when our people participated in the drafting of our Constitution. More than 1 million people made submissions. And the National Assembly, or the Constitutional Assembly, that met in this very house, considered the various views that our people had to give, and we did not pontificate. We listened to our people, and finally we came to a conclusion which resulted in the Constitution that governs how we function here. Now I'm saying, let us give our people an opportunity to voice their feelings, their aspirations about land. Land remains a deep wound that was inflicted on our people. Let our people go through their healing process and deal with the issue of land as effectively as they want to. So let us engage in dialogue. Mr. Maimane, allow our people to express their views, and once that process is done, we will then, with the hindsight of wisdom that will have come from our people, we will then be able to take a decision. Right now, we have a constitutional construct that has set in motion various processes and indeed various principles. Our people are saying, we want this wound to heal. Let us address this wound and let us listen to our people because they are talking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable President. The first supplementary question is to be asked by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Point of order. I noticed that the Deputy President looks very tired. He's been in and out of sleep for a while, so I thought maybe the President could take him for a walk outside.
No, Honourable Member.
10 minutes.
No, Honourable Member, that's not the point of order. We can't allow the President to leave the podium now. He's busy answering questions. Honourable Maimane.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Honourable President, I think I must affirm this point talking about wounds of our past. That in the Constitution of the DA is adopted a value of fairness. It is an explicit acknowledgement that our country remains unequal on the basis of race. And I think every member who sits here, black or white, stands committed to addressing that injustice. And I feel it's critical that when we enter this discussion, it cannot be on the basis of putting one race versus another. It ought to be on the basis of all races working together to address that injustice. Having said that, I welcome your input on the input South Africans have made. I want to speak specifically about the one you made in the UK, where you spoke to a newspaper and affirmed the fact that the land reform processes of any future will be implemented, will happen within the parameters of the Constitution. But my challenge is this, Mr. President, is that there are statements that are made by members of your NEC. And I want to quote Mr. Ronald Lamula, who says, in fact, without doubt, this is in a nationally televised debate. He says, the commitment to expropriate without compensation doesn't only refer to farms, but that the ANC is explicitly targeting urban residential properties for seizure, he says. Now, what I'm trying to understand, Mr. President, is that overseas we defend the Constitution, but in South Africa it seems it's open for negotiation. Can you explain to us what is the policy of your party so that we get certainty as to whether we will defend the Constitution, or is Mr. Lamula right in that it's property seizures? Which is it exactly, Mr. President? Thank you very much.
The Honourable President.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair and Honourable Maimane. Thank you very much. The process that we have started here, which really was given rise to by the resolution of the governing party in December, when it resolved that we need to address this whole issue of land reform through the mechanism of expropriating land without compensation. It's clearly a process which, having been embraced by this House, is going to lead to an outcome. An outcome, Mr. Maimane, which I am sure you are going to be part of, as you are part of this House. We are now currently involved in this very process. Now, clearly, the policy of the governing party is very clear. We need to move on with land reform and restore the dignity of our people. But for me, more importantly, to look at land with new eyes, as it were. To look at land as an economic resource that was taken away by force from the majority of our people, to restore that economic resource into the hands of our people so that they can have a livelihood, they can have an economic capability which is going to improve their lives. And the Freedom Charter is very clear on this. And it says, as early as 1955, our forebears complained about this and said, or raised an aspiration, or articulated an aspiration, and said that the land shall be shared amongst those who work it. And therefore, we want that land to be shared amongst our people. Our people must be able to share the land. And I'd like those who say that the land must not be shared to stand up and say, we are not prepared to share the land. I want those to stand up and say so, because that is the most important. And if you like, that is the most reasonable demand from our people. And they are not saying, we want the land to the exclusion of everyone else. They are saying, we want the land, as it was said by our forebears in 1955, to be shared amongst who work it. Now, if we come to urban land, indeed, there is land there that has been kept away from our people, and they are in need of housing. And they don't want to eat the land. They don't want to abuse the land. They want to utilize the land to have houses. And those who say that our people must not have houses must stand up and say, we do not want you to have houses. Because that is the most important demand that poor people are making. And our job, our task is to respond to the needs of our people. We have to respond, and we've got, Mr. Maimane, to find ways and means. The mayor of Johannesburg has been taking buildings that are derelict, buildings that owe quite a bit of money. He's been taking them, and he's been taking them without any form of compensation and transforming them into living abodes for our people. And if that is not true, that is something that needs to be looked at, that our people need housing, and we need to respond to housing and share living abodes. Those who do not have houses must also have houses. Those who do not have land must also have land, and therefore land must be shared amongst our people. And that is a demand, Mr. Steenhuisen, that is a demand that will never go away. For people who think that the issue of land in South Africa will be swept under the carpet, I say, wake up, my friend, smell the coffee. It is not going to happen. Our people want the land. So our task, and I want to repeat what I said earlier, even for those who are seeking to go around the world to mobilize the international community against their own country, I want to say to you, come back home. Come back home, let us sit around the table, let us find a solution on this issue of land. Our people have shown the best form that they have to make submissions. They have come forward, they've put submissions on the table. Let us engage with those submissions. In the end, the decision that will be taken on this issue is going to be a decision that will be owned by all of us, and it will be born out of dialogue, it will be born out of consensus seeking, and it is the type of decision that will take this country forward. This country is ready to take off. Let us use land to make South Africa move forward. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable President. The next supplementary question is to be asked by the Honourable Tobias.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Your Excellency, Mr. President, as we forge social impact, how will government address the original sin of and the developmental plan by addressing expropriation without compensation, as our people are starting to lose patience? Indeed, we need to address this original sin. We welcome also the proposal that you have put on the table. We just need to know how will government move forward with the social compact. I thank you.
The Honourable President.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Clearly, government in the end will implement the decisions that have been taken by the governing party on this matter of land. But it is also going to take its cue from what this House is going to decide with regard to the issue that is now in our Constitutional Review Committee. And once that process has been concluded with the inputs of all our people, government will then be able to move forward. But as it is now, government indeed is moving ahead to address the issue of restitution of land, redistribution of land, and making sure that there is security of tenure. There are a number of people in our country who do not have security of tenure, who have real serious challenges with regard to their own rights. A number of them are labor tenants who are being kicked off their the places where they are and grew up and were born. And those rights need to be secured because they've been degraded. And indeed, there are quite a number of other people who are entitled to restitution. Some are entitled to their title deeds. And all those matters, government needs to move ahead and address. And in some cases, there's been slow pace with regard to restituting land to them. We are now looking at all that and saying they must be fast-paced. We must make sure that indeed that land is handed back to them. And all this is being done, yes, within the constitutional parameters we have, because we are a country that is governed by the rule of law. And as we move forward to a social compact, which social compact I hope and trust we will be able to cement once this process reaches fruition, we will then be able, as a government, to move ahead to implement the decisions that will have been taken. We will make sure that we do not sit on our laurels whilst our people are hungry for land. We will want to implement whatever decision that will have been taken. So implementation is going to be the key determinant, and we must say that in the past, yes, it may well have been slow. We are now going to fast-pace this implementation process so that we address this key issue that our people have wanted to see addressed over a long time. Thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you, Honourable President.